New project. Okay, Java project and call it as day 2. So let's talk about object-oriented programming now. And object-oriented programming is the backbone for Selenium. All right. Now, suppose if I create a new class and I call that class as a planet class. Okay. Now, what are the features of a planet? Okay. You have, say, the name of the planet. Okay. And maybe you have the radius of the planet. Okay. So, you have this planet class with two parameters. Okay, now I'll create a new class known as, say, test planet with the main function. Fine, test planet, and this is the main function. Any file with the main function can be executed. Okay, I can click on the run button of this test planet file, it will run. Any file with the main function can be executed. This file planet.java, it cannot be executed. It is not having the main function. Okay, now if I run this, obviously this will print planet. Now I'm going to do something known as creating object of planet class. Okay. Okay, so how do you create the object of planet class? You write over here, new planet. Okay, so when you rewrite this new planet, okay, you create the object of the planet class. And what happens is that in the memory, okay, uh, hold on. In the memory, the object of planet is created and it has got two parameters. Okay, the name and the radius. Okay, a memory space is allocated to the object and it will have two parameters. Similarly, I can create as many objects of this planet class, and in the memory, what will happen is that if I create three objects, I get three such locations in the memory. Each location or each object would have the name and the radius parameters. Okay, but you cannot access these objects. To access these objects, you need to have object references. Okay, you need to write, say, planet P1 equals to new planet. And then right? Okay, so you create the three planet objects like this, and every planet object can have, you can access the parameters of every planet object. Okay, P1, P2, P3 will be the object references. These are not the objects, but these are the references which point towards the object. Okay, this is P1, P2, P3. Okay, with these you can change the state of the objects. You can write P1 dot name is, say, Earth. Okay, P1 dot radius is, you can give some number. So what will happen is that the first object, okay, the name would be Earth, and you can set some radius. Right. Similarly, you can initialize the second object. You can write P2 dot and you will get the name parameter. Okay. And right. So you can initialize the second object as well. Right. So this way, what happens is that every object will have a different name and a radius. So, yeah, hi Anamika. I think you were not there yesterday, right?
Hi Ashish, I'm sorry I was having some trouble joining in.
Okay, no problems. So, are you aware of little bit of programming? Have you
No,
done
I'm
it in
very
the
blank.
okay? So I think it will. You might find this a little different, but just try to focus, and I'll send you the recording as well. Okay,
Okay,
but when you
sure.
practice it, you'll understand. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And P3 dot radius, you can give anything. So this was our planet class, and this planet class had two parameters, name and radius. Okay, and what we did was we, on this line, we created something in programming or in Java or in object-oriented programming. We call it the object of the class. And this object, I gave the name as Earth and radius as 1000 because in the planet class, I had declared name and radius as two parameters. So I've created three such objects, P1, P2, and P3 are pointing toward this object, and the third object is Venus. Right. So P1, P2, P3 are three object references which are pointing towards the objects. Okay. So if I have to say print the name of the first object, you can print P1 dot name, P2 dot name, P3 dot name. And You run it, so you see that it is printing Earth, Jupiter, and Venus. Okay, now comes a little bit of uh, twist. Okay, if I write P1 equals to P2, this means that P1 should not point here and make P1 point towards the same object to which P2 is pointing. Okay, so P1 and P2 will point towards the same object. And if I, hold on, put a small demarcating line and print the names of P1, P2, and P3 again. And if I run this program, so now you will see that it is printing Jupiter and Jupiter for both of these P1 dot name as well as P2 dot name, because P1 and P2 are pointing towards the same object. So one object can have multiple object references with which you can change the object. Okay, if I write over here now, P1 dot name is say Mars. Okay, and so what will happen is that this Jupiter will change to Mars, and it will change for P1 as well as P2. Okay, any one object can change the state. Okay, so when you print this thing, you see that for P1 and P2, it is printing Mars. Okay, right. So that's the thing. If you have any questions, please do let me know.
Uh, Ashish, one question. Um, like in print ln, we are giving like p1 dot name, for example, right? So that's the name of the planet. But if you want to, in the same line, if you want to print the radius also, so that's parameter p1 name. We can give multiple parameters in there, like
Yeah,
comma
you can put a
p1.
plus sign,
Okay,
maybe
concatenate.
a differentiator like a string,
Hmm.
and you can print P1 dot radius.
Okay.
Okay, so plus is a concatenating operator.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, say if I have a variable, I'll explain in detail. If I have a string variable A, okay, and I have another string variable B. If I print hey, so it's going to print hey, and if I concatenate A with it, so it will print hey, hello. And if I concatenate B with it, it will print hey, hello there. But I want a space between hello and there. So I can put a blank string like this. Okay, and you see that, right? So this is how it works, concatenation. Right. Now, yeah, coming back to objects and object references, you can create objects and you can create object references. With object references, obviously, you can change the state of the object. Okay, right. Now, suppose I have a variable in this object known as star. That what is the star to which the planet belongs to. Okay, so this star variable will be there in every object, right? So when I create the object, I can write p1 dot star is every planet has the same star, that is the sun. Okay, and suppose now I'm going to do one thing, that I'm going to make a function public void print planet details. So this function is going to print the details of each planet. So this function will also be part of every object. Okay, so if I print inside this name, radius, and the star. Okay, and I can call this function. Okay, suppose over here instead of printing it, okay, I will comment all these lines. Commenting means I will render them ineffective. You can select the line and multiple lines and hit Control slash of the keyboard. So these lines, they are commented. That means they will not be executed. Okay, if you want to uncomment them, you select it and you hit Control slash. Okay, they changed it. Okay, hold on. I'll tell you later on because I never use Eclipse, honestly. Okay, I use IntelliJ. All right. So let me check it out. How do you uncomment them? Right. So out here, if I use p1 dot and I call the function print details. So what will happen is that it will, if I run this, see it is printing the details Earth 1000 and Sun. So it will print the details of Earth. Okay, so if the function print details is called with p1, it will print the details of p1. Okay, If print details is called by P2, it will print the details of P2. Right. So when you run this, see that? Okay, so it's printing null for both of them because I wrote P1 dot star instead of P1, P2, P3. Okay, so now if I run this, you see that? Okay, now if the thing is, if I write again P1 equals to P2 and if I again print the details, then P1 will point towards the same object as P2 and you see that Jupiter, Jupiter, Venus. Okay, so this class has got some variables, functions, which are part of the object. Okay, now the thing is, every object we know will have the same star. For every object, the star is sun. So we are unnecessarily wasting the memory space as well. Okay, the star, we know that no matter how many how many planet objects we create, the star is going to remain as the sun. So what we do is that in order to avoid this, we create it as static. We name star as static. So now when you name something as static, so what happens is that that thing will not remain in the object. So we will remove it from the object. Okay. And we put it somewhere in the memory location, which is common for all the objects. Okay, the star parameter becomes common for all the objects when you name it static. So if you are creating it as static, you don't need to access it with the object because it no longer resides inside the object. And you will get a small yellow warning sign over here as well, which will say that, fine, uh, you haven't got it as the part of the object. Don't try to initialize it like this. If there is something static in the class, you can call it directly with the class name. You can write it over here, test planet dot, sorry, planet dot star is sun. Okay, right. So when you run this, so it's going to print you sun. Okay, so I hope you have understood this. Right, so static is something which will remove something from the object. Okay, it will bring it at the class level. You can access it with the class. And when you keep the variable value as sun, it becomes sun for every object. Okay, it is common for everything. Right, even if you have to print it, you can print it with planet dot star. But I cannot put or use planet dot say name. I'll get an error because this is non-static. Okay, in order to access non-static, you have to create the object. Okay, so this is known as a non-static global variable. Okay, so double slash is a comment. Fine. And this is also known as a non-static global variable. And this is known as a static global variable. And this function is known as a non-static function. You can create a static function as well. You can write public static void, say any function, say x, y, z. So this will become static function. Okay, right. So in order to access this static function, you can directly access it. Planet dot say XYZ. Okay, right. Now, anybody with any questions, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me anything.
Ashish, one quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the difference between like static variable and non-static variable? Like, I know to better use it, we need to know the difference of them, right? So we know like, okay, where to use that one.
Look, sometimes when something is common for all the objects, you keep it as static. So it will not be the part of the object. Okay, it will remain somewhere else in the memory.
Okay.
Or all right, depending on your situation, you can keep it as static. So you can directly access it with the class name. You don't need to create the object of the class.
Okay.
Right, and some parameters you want to keep in the object. Okay, for example, I'll take uh, a very simple example. Suppose if I have a employee class. Okay, so you have the parameters like the name of the employee, age of the employee, and say the address of the employee. Right. So these three parameters will differ for every employee. So you can keep them as non-static. But suppose you have a parameter known as the company of the employee. Now you know that all the employees will have, suppose, the same company. So you can keep company as static.
So that means the static value is going to remain constant.
It's not going to remain constant, it's going to remain same for every object.
Okay.
Okay, you can change it from sun to some other parameter, I can change it. Okay,
Yeah.
right. So This is how it works. Right. And one last thing which you need to understand is very simple. That is, this is a rule. Static cannot access non-static. Okay. Suppose in this static function xyz, which is lying somewhere in the memory over here, it is not the part of the object. Okay. Inside this function, if I try to print the value of star, it will say, okay, I can print it. I'm not getting any error because the star is static in nature. The value is sun. XYZ function can access the star variable. But if I want to print the name, I will get an error. Cannot make static reference to non-static field name. Okay, this is, don't ignore this. And basically, in this XYZ function, if I try to access the name, it is confused that which name. We have three objects, suppose over here. Every object has a different name, and XYZ is having a different memory space. Okay, so you will get an error. If I write the same line over here, you will get the error on name and radius because this thing is not in the object. Which object's name and radius you want to print? So you get a error over here. But in print details, you are not getting the error because print details is inside the object. So it will print the name, radius, and the star as sun because star is common for all the objects. It is static. You are getting my point, right? If you have any questions in this, please let me know. Yeah. 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 No, if I write P1 equals to P2, this means that shift the location of P1 from the object to P2. So P1 and P2 will change point towards the same object, right? Okay. So when they point towards the same object, if I'm writing P1 equals to P2 and both of them are pointing towards the same object, so this both of them will print the same value. Okay. Yeah. No, if it is shifted once, it is shifted. Okay. If I write like this, int I equals to 100, and on the next line, if I write I equals to 200, so 100 is gone. Yeah. Okay. Right. So, all right. So this is a golden rule. Static cannot access non-static. And in Selenium, okay, That's what we do. We just create the objects of the existing classes. Everything I told you yesterday that everything in Selenium is inbuilt. You don't have to, invent something. You just have to use the existing classes and you need to create the objects of those existing classes. All right. Like, for example, you go to the official website of Selenium, selenium.dev, and go to the downloads section, and you will see Selenium Java. Go to the API docs, which is the documentation of Selenium, and click on the frames view. Okay, so these are all the classes in Selenium. In Selenium, these are the inbuilt classes. Okay, and if you scroll down, you will see something known as WebDriver written. Okay, what is this WebDriver? I'll tell you. Okay, if you open it, you will see all the implementing class names. So this is the starting point of Selenium. And these are the different driver classes in Selenium which are inbuilt. For each browser, we have a driver class. Like for Chrome, you have the Chrome driver, you have the Firefox driver, iDriver. A remote web driver is used in case of Selenium Grid when we have to run the test cases parallelly. Okay, you have Safari driver, Edge driver. So for every browser, you have a driver. And hold on, I'll create a new class known as Selenium Basics. Look, things might be a little new for people over here, but as you practice and you will see the video and practice, you will see, you will understand slowly. Okay, if I create the object of Chrome driver, okay, first of all, in order to use Selenium in this project, I have to configure Selenium in the project. Okay, yesterday I told you you need to include the jar files. Okay, so every new project you will have to, in the class path, you will have to add the Selenium jars. Hold on. So this way now your project is Selenium enabled. Okay, if you print new Chrome driver and if you create the object of the internal class Chrome driver, which is mentioned over here, right? And if I run this in my PC, a blank Chrome will open, but it won't open in your PC. Okay, look, basically what is there is that these Selenium guys, they have, hold on, just a minute. This is a new class. Hold on. It's in beta. Okay. Okay, ignore this. So if you go to the official website of Selenium, look, in Selenium, there are different browsers, and every browser has a exe which has to be downloaded in order to automate the browser. Okay, if you scroll down, you will see browsers. You expand this, and uh, suppose you see the Chrome browser, right? You go to the documentation and um, you know, hold on. Check the version of the Chrome browser you are using. Okay, you go to help about Google Chrome, and this is the version which I'm using. It's updating. Hold on. Look, for every browser which you use, there is a exe which you need to download in order to automate that browser. Okay, so these exes are provided by the browser guys themselves, and you have to use not the browser exe, but there is a special exe which is dependent on the version of the browser, and that has to be downloaded in order to automate the browser. Okay, so you have this. Hold on. Right. So I'll relaunch Chrome. So my version is 5414.75. So accordingly, you go to the downloads section, or 5414.74 is visible over here. I'll download for this version. Okay, if you don't see the version over here, you can go to the download section. You will see all the versions, and you need to download the exe for that version. You can download for Chrome driver Windows 32-bit. It will work for 64-bit as well. And I have kept it in my PC at this location, Chrome driver. And you need to give the command out here, that is system dot set. Now system is a class, it's an internal class in Java, and set property is a static function inside it. You can directly access it with the class name, and you set the system property as, give this command, webdriver dot chrome dot drive, and give the path to the chrome driver dot exe. In Java, in the path, you have to mention double slash. Okay, right? So this should be in lowercase. Sometimes people keep W for this as capital. No. Java is a case sensitive language. Uppercase and lowercase matters a lot. Okay. So now if you run this in your PC, this will work. Make sure you download the driver exe correctly for your version of Chrome. Okay. Now you can give this Chrome driver an object reference. So CD will point towards this Chrome driver, and if I write cd dot, you will get lot of functions in the Chrome driver. For example, close is to close the browser. Okay, there are lots of functions, like there is a function known as get. This will take you to a website. Okay, mentioning protocol in your URL is must in case of Selenium. If you don't do it, you will get an error. Okay, so if you run this, this will launch Chrome and take you to BBC. All right. Now, similarly, you have got other driver classes. in Selenium, you have other driver classes like you have, say, the Firefox driver. Okay, now sometimes what happens is that the Chrome updates itself automatically, and this program will stop working one fine day. One morning you get up, this will stop working. So you have to download the latest exe again, right? And it will work fine. So similarly, you can have Firefox driver. And create the object of this class. I'll comment these lines, I'll render them ineffective. And for Firefox also, you need to download an exe. All right, you go to the official website of Selenium, and under the documentation browsers, you will have Firefox, and go to the documentation and go to the Gecko driver releases, and you can download it from here. Okay, for 64-bit, 32-bit Windows. All right. And I have kept the exe after downloading over here, and geckodriver.exe it is called. Fine. So you give the same commands, that is system dot set property webdriver dot, it's called as gecko dot driver, to the path of geckodriver.exe. Okay, or webdriver.firefox. Okay, when you run this, you will see that a blank Firefox will open, but my Gecko driver exe is old. I need to update it. Once I update it, my Firefox will also start running. Okay, so I'll update it after the class. Otherwise, this is what happens when the version of your browser is not matching the version of the exe. You get an error. Okay, right. So just ignore this. Right. And similarly, these days Edge browser is very famous. You have the exe for Edge as well. And you have the Edge driver class. Right. And the exe for Edge is found on the Microsoft website. Okay, I don't use Edge, but if you open Edge, then you will find under help, hold on, under about Microsoft Edge, not help. About Microsoft Edge, you will see the version as 1851.61. Okay, and you download the, just a minute. Yeah, in Chrome we had it. This is the official website of Microsoft, right? And this is my Edge version 1518.61. So you find the version over here. All right, they haven't released the exe for release 109. Okay, okay, they have it. Okay, .61. This is the one I'm having. Right, so you can download it for your operating system 64-bit. So you download the exe, right, and I'll update it, right, and it's here, right. I'll copy it into my folder. Okay, I'll delete the older one, extract it here, delete, no need of this driver nodes. So you have this ms edge driver.exe. So you need to give this line system dot set property webdriver.edge.driver, and you need to give the path of this exe. Okay, and now you can create the object of edge driver class, which is responsible to automate edge. Okay, and you can write ed dot, you can call the non-static function, go to the website http say cnn.com. Don't forget to mention the protocol in the URL. Okay, HTTP or HTTPS, anything. Right, and when you run this, you see the Edge browser opens and it takes you to scene. Okay, right. Now, now we have this Chrome driver, Firefox driver, Edge driver. So every browser has a driver class. Safari driver is there, but it is unstable. It's not working fine. Right. So, but for learning purposes, I think these three are enough. Okay. There are some static things inside these driver classes as well, but there are less static things. Right. Most of the things in the driver classes are non-static. You just need to create the object of the driver class and start using it. So basically, in Selenium, everything is inbuilt. You just need to know how to use it, what to do in which situation, which object to create. All the commands are inbuilt. Okay, but in order to use these commands, you need to understand object-oriented uh, programming principles. And the first thing which we saw that today was the class planet. Okay, we created this class, we created the objects of this class, we created the object references, we created something static, something non-static. We saw the golden rule, static cannot access non-static. Okay, right. So we will stop here for today. Okay. So anybody with